Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Eat, Meat, and Question Everything. Today we have an awesome special guest, Ben Azadi. Thank you so much, Ben, for being here with us today.
Hey, Devin. Hey, Courtney. Thanks for allowing me to be here with you today. I'm so excited to talk about eating meat and questioning everything. Let's do it.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm
Well,
excited.
can
Oh,
you just get into
sorry.
how you found, I know the leg, everyone
Yeah, the
watching there's a
delay.
little bit of a lag, so I apologize, but let's just get into it, how you came, where you came from, and how you found keto and how you started on this kind of crazy, amazing journey that you've been on.
Absolutely. So, like many people listening, I followed a standard American diet. I didn't know any better. My parents did not know any better. So, we do the best we can according to our current level of awareness. So my parents, they immigrated to America from the Middle East in the 70s. I'm born here in 1984 in Miami Beach, Florida. And I'm pretty much left to my own devices growing up. Parents were not at home. They were working all the time. As a matter of fact, my mom worked at two Kentucky Fried Chickens. So she would bring me home fried chicken just about every single night. And I would eat it as a kid. I thought that was like the best thing ever. And year after year, I gained more weight. I started to lack confidence and I had very low self esteem and I had depression. And my physical body was overweight and obese as a young boy, but also my mental health was overweight and obese as well. So I really had these bad behaviors growing up as a teenage boy, hanging out with the wrong crowd. I developed a lot of addictions to drugs and video games and sugar and food and toxic relationships. And this, of course, you become your environment. So my environment molded me. And this transferred into my adulthood, where I found myself now in 2008, a 24-year-old man who was obese at 250 pounds, 34% body fat, broken, depressed, suicidal, ready to give up on life, exploring suicide because I was tired of being in pain every single day. I didn't see any light at the end of the tunnel. And believe me, my primary goal was to end my suffering and to commit suicide. But I kept thinking about my mom, and I love my mom. I didn't want her to deal with the devastation of her son taking his life, so it stopped me. But it was a vicious cycle of thinking about suicide, going on the internet looking for ways to commit suicide, and then stopping myself because of thinking about my mother. So I knew I had to figure things out. I was so unhealthy. I was so unhappy. And a friend of mine handed me a book, my best friend, as a matter of fact. And he said, read this book. I think it'll help you with what you're going through because he saw that I was in so much pain every day. So I read the book and I fell in love with the book. And it's not that that was like the greatest book in the world, but that one book, it's called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, excuse me. It helped me understand that these small little behaviors and actions that you take every day, they accumulate and then they compound over time. And that could compound with amazing health and amazing results over time, or it could be the opposite with poor health, really being unhappy, unhealthy, etc. And I started to understand that it's these small little decisions that I've made throughout the years that have led me to this point. So that one book led to a second book, a fifth book, a 20th book. I started to get into authors like Bob Proctor, Dr. Wayne Dyer, Lisa Nichols, Earl Nightingale, Tony Robbins. I mean, incredible people. But the most important thing the books did for me, it helped me for the first time ever take ownership and responsibility. At the age of 24, I stopped playing the victim of my history and I started to actually put my foot down and become the victor of my destiny. And it started with responsibility. And I think that's where it starts for everybody listening. Like, if you want to make a significant shift in your life and a change, you got to own up to it and take responsibility. And I'm not negating all the crappy things and all the terrible things that might have happened to you. But Wayne Dyer said it best. He said, if other people are the cause of your problems, you would have to hire a psychiatrist for the rest of the world in order for you to get better. That's not going to happen. That's not going to work. So 9 months after I took responsibility, I went from 250 pounds all the way down to 170 pounds. I went from 34% body fat all the way down to 6% body fat, finally achieved this magical physical six pack that I always dreamed of as a young kid, right? And the most important thing that I achieved, though, was a mental six pack. And I started to understand what food does for your mood. And I started to understand the mental health component to nutrition. And that's where it all started for me, right? I was still very young, 24 years old. This is 14 years ago. And I was still kind of exploring different nutrition diets and avenues, etc. I became a vegan, then I did paleo, and then eventually I figured out that this vegan thing is a whole bunch of baloney. And in 2013 is where I discovered keto and intermittent fasting, and that's where I went all in. And of course, like many people who listen to your show, keto is kind of a great starting point. And then there's different levels where they go into like more meat-based carnivore, and then different levels of carnivore. And then so that's kind of the way that my trajectory went that way. And now I do like a variation of mostly meat-based, some fruit, some plants that do okay with me, and it's so different for everybody. But yeah, to answer your question in a long answer, that was 14 years ago. That's how it all got started. And now, fast forward, my company is called Keto Camp. Our mission is to educate, to inspire 1 billion people, to wake them up and let them know, hey, if you treat your health casually, you will end up a casualty. And you don't want that. The world does not want that. And that the mission is to educate people, to wake them up.
Wow. Amazing. I've consumed a lot of your content, a lot of your like speakings and stuff, but I didn't know the extent of your story. And it's easy for me to tear up, but oh my gosh, it made me tear up and get goosebumps thinking about like how you're thinking about like suicide, but then like thought of your mom. Like I feel that I struggled with my mental health as well before carnivore. So that's awesome that it's changed your life so much. And I don't think a lot of people realize that a diet can heal your brain. And I'm not saying it's like I don't know, like it's not like the miracle drug, but I think it is linked so much. And I don't think people realize what they're eating, how it actually like affects their mental health. Like I get it dismissed all the time. Like, how dare you say that eating this way helped you go off Zoloft? I'm like, okay, but it did. Like there's a link there for sure.
100%. Yeah, exactly. For sure, Courtney. And you're a perfect example of that. I mean, how could it not impact your mental health? The food you eat directly impacts the neurotransmitters that are produced, the levels of neurotransmitters. Not only that, the inflammation around the receptor sites in your brain, right? We know high sugar, high glucose and insulin spikes, high seed oils, high processed foods creates more neuroinflammation. And if you have more inflammation in your brain, how could your endorphins do their job? How could dopamine? How could you feel good with dopamine? You need more dopamine. You need more pleasure, and of course, that leads to addiction, etc. So, by changing your nutrition and eating meat and getting all of this processed junk out of your body, now you downregulate inflammation in the brain, and now everything just works better, right? So, I 100% agree with you, and your story is incredible. So, keep sharing it because I believe in what you did.
Thank you. Yeah. So, okay, I know you said you kind of have some plants and some fruit. So, what would a typical day of eating look like for you these days?
Yeah, so my eating window, yeah, I'm aiming to push my eating window earlier and earlier into the morning time because that's where a lot of research shows, it's best for your circadian rhythm. I don't like that research because for me personally, I don't like to eat breakfast. I don't like to eat before noon. I just feel so good fasted. I see you both shaking your head because you both agree. But I do get it. Every organ, every cell has the circadian clock, and the brain has the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which kind of like is the internal clock inside of the body. And we're designed to eat most of our calories earlier on in the day. So with that being said, I don't really have breakfast, even though I know the importance of eating earlier in the day. My eating window most days is between like 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. Most days, unless I have a dinner. Sometimes I'll have breakfast, but in general, most days, 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. So I usually eat meat. I do really good. I had a ribeye earlier today with cooked in grass-fed butter, and then I put even more butter on top when it was done. And that's all I had actually for lunch today. I had a ribeye and then some creatine and water. So I do ribeyes, I do meat, I do eggs, I do like raw cheese sometimes. I'll do raw dairy, usually goat and sheep. I do really well with. In terms of plants, sometimes I'll have a little bit of some arugula. I'll do okay with that. I definitely don't have things like Brussels sprouts or kale or spinach or almonds or most nuts and seeds. I don't do well with. I do okay with like avocados and some mushrooms in moderation. I do okay with some sweet potatoes. But again, the majority of my plate, 90% plus 95% is going to be meat based. And then from time to time, I'll do 30 to 40 days straight of just, 100% carnivore. And then I'll have some things back in to see how my body responds. So yeah, to answer your question, like eat meat and question everything. I like that.
Awesome. Okay, well, speaking of fasting, so what are your thoughts on that? And I do like, because I've also been seeing that too, where we should be eating earlier and cutting off like way before bedtime. I feel like I always kind of used to be the opposite. I would go as long as I can and maybe have like a 12 to 6 eating window. But yeah, I'm reading the same stuff lately that maybe that's not really the best. So what are your thoughts on just any just like basic advice for people looking into fasting?
Yeah, there's so much controversial topics around fasting, because some people are going to say fasting is a stress, don't do it. It's going to stress your body. And then some people will say, yeah, but exercise is a stress, and you're not telling people not to exercise. It's really not the stress that is bad. It's your if your body adapts to it, right? So stress will only be bad for you if your body does not adapt to it. Stress is very good for your body when it adapts to it. So, like exercise, the right dosage of exercise is so important for stressing your body and getting stronger. Same thing with fasting. Fasting stresses your body, but when your body adapts to it, then you get healthier. So everybody is so different. We need to find that fasting threshold. It's called this hormetic zone. We want to stay in that hormetic window right there. So if somebody's brand new, I would first address the fundamentals. Make sure you're getting quality sleep, you're mastering your stress, mental, emotional, work, relationship. And then we could start messing with some fasting schedules, meaning we could just start with 12 hours. You're done eating at 5 p.m. And then you wait until at least 5 a.m. the next morning, 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. if you want to go a little longer and break the fast. So that's a good way to start. I do think most people can get away with 14 to 16 hours of fasting each day, as long as they're getting enough protein during their eating window, with the caveat that it's not a woman who's 7 days right before their period, right? We know that's the time to build progesterone and estrogen, and you don't want to deal with too much fasting. So you want to actually do less fasting that week. So my advice to somebody getting started is to think about fasting like a muscle that you develop over time. If you have been sitting on your couch for 20 years and then you hear about this marathon coming to your city and you go sign up for it, but you don't train for it, it's going to look ugly. You're going to hurt yourself. It's the same thing with fasting. If you're eating every 2 to 3 hours, like you've been conditioned to believe, and then you say, oh, I heard all about the benefits of a 24-hour fast, I'm going to do that tomorrow, it's going to look ugly, right? So when your body is fat adapted and you got ketones going, it makes it so much easier, because as blood sugar drops, as glucose gets low in the brain, the body now could switch over to fat, and you have ketones being produced by the liver, and it tells the brain, calm down, you're fine. Here are ketones. The brain loves beta hydroxybutyrate. So the first step is to get fat adapted. That's the way that I teach it. And then we start building up that fasting muscle. And of course, it's going to be very different for men versus women who have a menstrual cycle versus women who are postmenopausal. But the way to start is to think of it as a muscle and then progress very slowly.
Great. No, that's awesome. Do you do any longer fasts like here and there, any 24, 36 yourself?
I do. Yeah. I did a 5 day water fast. That's a very long fast to achieve like really maximum autophagy levels. I do like that, like once a year, a 5 day water fast. But again, I'm an experienced faster. That's not something you just go out and do if you're not experienced. 24-hour fast, I might do once a week. I was just at Low Carb Denver, speaking at Low Carb Denver last weekend. And when I travel, I always fast. I don't know if you two are the same way, just because there's so much like toxic food at the airport and the airplanes. And it's funny because every time I fly, the flight attendant is always asking me, we have this snack, we have this meal. What do you want? I'm just like, I'm good. Nothing. I'm fine. Just leave me alone. So I I flew to Denver last week from Miami. And then I fasted the whole day because I got there right when the conference was already going on. And then I waited until dinner. So I was like 27 hours fasted. And then when I flew back to Miami, I fasted like 32 hours. So I felt totally fine. I felt great. So I do like that as somebody who has built it up, but not for a beginner. If you're not a beginner, if you are a beginner, start with 14 hours, 16 hours, etc. But the benefit of a 24-hour fast with just water is that what it does for the gut. There's a study that I cited in my book, Keto Flex, from MIT that showed a 24-hour water fast in mice strengthened the intestinal stem cells. So it's a great way to reset the gut and help people with leaky gut. So I do like it as a tool in the shed.
Okay. Yeah, I think it is a great tool as well. Okay, so we have a few questions we want to ask that we reached out to our audience about. First one being, any tips for weight loss stalls? I would assume somebody that's already like keto or carnivore.
Yeah, great question. It's a very popular question, isn't it, Courtney? I would say this: weight loss is a side effect of a healthy cellular metabolism. So although I do see the value in getting to your goal weight, and I'm not neglecting that goal, I am saying don't focus on it, because your body does not lose weight in order to get healthy. It gets healthy, the hormones get optimized, and then the weight loss is just a side effect. So I would say, if you feel like you're doing everything right and you're getting healthy, your hormones are healthier, but the weight is still stuck, let's pay attention to some other things first and foremost. Non-scale victories, right? NSVs, we call them. Is your clothes fitting? Are your clothes fitting better? Is your skin complexion looking better? Are you getting better sleep? Mental health, is that improved? Get body fat percentage done. Arguably, that would be more important than the total number on the scale. If you're just looking at the total number, the total weight on the scale, there's so many variables there. It's going to fluctuate for so many reasons. I bought this scale with like a body fat thing from InBody that I used. It's just a curiosity. And I weighed myself the other day. It was like 182, I think it was. And then I worked out, and I was just curious. I was still fasted, right? I worked out, and then I feasted, and then the next morning I weighed myself again, and the scale went up to 189, and I'm like, there's no way I gained 7 pounds of fat by exercising and then eating meat and then going to sleep and waking up the next morning. So what happened? Well, when you are sore from a workout, you actually retain more water, and then the scale goes up. I didn't gain 7 pounds of fat. So the next day it went right back down. So if you just look at the scale, it's going to drive you nuts. Women who have a menstrual cycle, that week of your period, you retain more water. So body fat percentage is where it's at. Now, let's say you are checking body fat. You're checking all the right metrics and you've hit a plateau. What do? Then I would say, let's revisit the fundamentals. Are you getting quality sleep each night? Are you tracking your deep sleep when your body is actually ramping up growth hormone and other fat burning hormones? I would aim to get an hour and a half to 2 hours of deep sleep each night, and build lean muscle. Start strength training. The more lean muscle you have, it's more of a sponge to drive glucose and insulin down to help you tap into body fat more effectively. So move your body, lift weights, get quality sleep, keep focusing on the fundamentals, keep focusing on health and hormones, and then the weight will come off. It'll just be like, oh, that's cool. What a added bonus to me getting healthy. That's the way that I would look at it.
Awesome. I love that. Would you ever, or do you ever recommend tracking macros for anybody, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So if somebody's brand new to keto, to carnivore, they're like standard American diet, 300 grams of carbs per day, they're burning sugar, then I do see the value for maybe 14 days of, okay, let's have a gradual decrease in your carbohydrates. So we'll just track that one macro, carbohydrates, and then let's get it under 50 total grams in about 7 days or so. I like a gradual decrease versus like 300 grams to like zero. I think that's going to cause some problems. So I do value that. And then once you've got your carbs under 50 grams and you're eating a lot of healthy fat, then what you can do is test to see if you're in ketosis. I like the blood. Keto Mojo is what I use. And then once you verify that you're in ketosis, you're now burning fat instead of sugar, the macro that you switch to start tracking is protein. I like tracking protein and aiming to get your protein requirements most days. I'm okay with people being in a protein deficit some days, especially people who are very overweight. But, most days, 3 or 4 days out of the week, you want to get enough protein. So you would track that one macro nutrient just to get an idea. This is not something you do for months or years. It's just to get an idea. You're going to get so good at it. Like I'm so good at it. Like I know how much protein I have just from what I eat, right? You start to get familiar when you start tracking these things. But the recommended protein requirement is going to be 1 gram of protein per pound of your ideal body weight. So if your goal body weight is 120 pounds, that's the goal weight you want to eventually get to. Most days you want to consume 120 grams of protein. And when we say protein, I know I don't have to say this, Courtney and Devin, because it's your podcast about meat, but animal-based protein, not plant-based protein. Big difference there, animal-based protein. So yeah, those are the scenarios that I would recommend tracking macros, but it's not a long-term thing that I would suggest.
Perfect. Awesome. I think we all are on the same page with that. Okay, here's another one. Is long-term keto bad or dangerous? What are your thoughts on that? Do we need to slip out here and there to shake things up?
I do think I do think it's wise to shake things up. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's dangerous, but I would say there can be some detrimental effects for some more so than others. And the reason I say that is because if you think about it, our ancestors all did keto. That is a fact. The reason we exist today is because of this amazing metabolic process called ketosis. Thank God for ketones. So when I get a message from somebody saying, "Oh, keto is stupid. I hate the keto diet," they're pretty much saying, "I hate a metabolic process that God has built inside of my body that helped me survive and help us exist today." It's like it doesn't make any sense to me when I hear that, but I get it. It's been so like propaganda around keto. So with that being said, our ancestors also got out of ketosis when they had the opportunity. They ate some fruit, they had some carbs. So I call it keto flexing. Um, and I do see the value in it, especially when we think about the thyroid hormone. We know that the thyroid, hypothalamus pituitary thyroid axis is very interesting. The brain signals the thyroid with TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, to produce thyroid T4. Now, T4 is the inactive version of thyroid. It needs to be converted to an active form, T3. And then the cell, every cell has a receptor site for the T3 active version of thyroid. That's how important it is. And when you do ketosis for a very, very long time, what happens is chronically low levels of insulin, that conversion doesn't happen as efficiently as you'd like, because insulin in the right amount of spikes from time to time actually helps that hormonal conversion of T4 to T3. Second thing is, of course, women who have a menstrual cycle, we mentioned this earlier, we want to build progesterone the week before the period, and you do that with, some healthy carbs. So it's so different for everybody, but I will say this: 80%, 88%, 90% of the American adult population, they need keto. Like they're in a keto deficiency, and we want to get you fat adapted. We want to get you in ketosis. I don't teach it long term. In the beginning, I thought it was, something we would do long term, but I like the idea of being metabolically flexible and being so healthy and having such a great metabolism and hormone health that you can have some carbs from time to time and then go right back into ketosis. So that's kind of what I do. I call it keto flexing.
Okay, that sounds good. And another question we have is how to lower blood pressure naturally, not using meds. So with our diet.
Yeah, great question. It's a very popular question these days because a lot of people have high blood pressure. You might be on high blood pressure medication. The number one driver of high blood pressure is high insulin levels. So if you lower insulin, naturally, you're going to lower blood pressure levels as well. I've seen so many cool stories. I'm sure you both have as well. I've had some students come into my Keto Camp Academy with the same question. Ben, I've been on high blood pressure medication. I'm on 3 different high blood pressure medications. I've been on them for 12 years. How can I get off of them? And of course, I tell them it's never medical advice. You work with your doctor on this, but we put them into ketosis. We get them into some fasting strategies. We fix their sleep. 30 days, 60 days, they're off all the meds. And it's not just high blood pressure. It happens with like migraine pills and other medications, or some women who haven't had their period in a year and they have PCOS, they get it back. I'm sure you see it all the time too. So we want to lower insulin, and you do that by eating more protein and fat, eating more meat, lowering your carbs, building lean muscle mass, getting quality sleep. There's another piece to it too. Nitric oxide is very important. The lower your nitric oxide levels, the higher your blood pressure. Nitric oxide helps your arteries vasodilate, and it helps more blood flow, and it helps lower blood pressure. So the number one reason I think people have low nitric oxide levels, or one of the most common reasons I should say, is they're breathing through their mouth constantly. They're mouth breathers. And you actually deplete nitric oxide by being a chronic mouth breather. I used to be one of them. So you want to breathe through the nose as much as possible. Mouth tape at night. I mouth tape at night. And something else that I learned from Dr. Nathan Bryan, who's probably the leading researcher in the entire world on nitric oxide. I just had dinner with him in Miami. Antiseptic mouthwash like Listerine depletes nitric oxide production. So don't use mouthwash, especially antiseptic mouthwash. He believes that it's depleting nitric oxide to a point where it actually could increase your heart disease risk, which is not good. He also said one more thing that I'll add to the answer here. If your total cholesterol is under 200, it blocks the binding of nitric oxide and it increases your heart disease risk dramatically. I'm going to say that again. Under 200. You probably think, do you mean over 200? No, under 200. You don't want a total cholesterol under 200 for both men and women. So, yeah, lower insulin, get your nitric oxide up, and that should resolve the high blood pressure.
Awesome. Okay, that is new information to me as far as the mouth breathing link to that, because I hear a lot about mouth breathing stuff. I have tape. I don't use it. I got it from my husband. He hasn't used it yet. But that and the mouthwash, that's really fascinating. I haven't heard that. So hopefully that little nugget will be super helpful. And then here's another question that I feel like the answer is just don't eat dairy. Someone's wondering if they can't eat dairy because they have a casein intolerance, like what do they do? I mean,
Yeah,
don't eat. I don't think we need dairy to thrive. But what are your thoughts on dairy in general for those that do have it in their diet as well?
for sure. We don't need dairy. I agree. There was that study that came out that showed 75% of the adult population, not just in the US, but the adult population in the world, 75% of them can't process dairy properly, meaning there's some sort of sensitivity, inflammatory response. Now, with the casein sensitivity, or was it a sensitivity or an allergy?
I think it just said an intolerance.
An intolerance. So that's more of like a sensitivity. You might want to try raw dairy from A2 cows, like organic grass-fed raw dairy, and see if you have the same response. But yeah, like Courtney, like you said, I mean, you don't really need dairy. Some people I see do better with goat and sheep dairy, raw goat sheep dairy. The cool thing about goat and sheep dairy is that 30% of goat and sheep dairy is medium chain triglyceride. So it actually can help with ketone production and it's much more tolerable. But to your point, you don't necessarily need it. I do love dairy, like the taste of it personally, but I don't feel that great with it. So I have it in moderation and I do like really high quality dairy when I do it.
Same, and same with Devin. We're all on the same page with that dairy. We like it, but we're better without it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what we have for questions. Is there something that's a hot topic for you right now, or something that you're specifically passionate about speaking about that you want to share with our people today?
Yes. There's actually a supplement that I believe when you take it daily and you could take it multiple times a day, there's not really a toxicity limit to this specific supplement. It elevates your health results. It elevates your mental health, physical health, spirituality, relationships, downregulates inflammation. It helps you with ketosis. It helps your fasting schedule. It helps with exercise. It helps with sleep. It helps with your heart rate variability. It helps with pretty much everything in your life. And Dr. Joe Dispenza did brain scans on a lot of people going through his seminars, and he watched their brain and their brain waves through these scans when they took this vitamin. It's called vitamin G. They took vitamin G and he watched what happened in their body, and he saw over 1,200 chemical reactions take place instantaneously that put their body and their brain in this anti-inflammatory healing state. He saw an increase in dopamine, oxytocin, GABA, serotonin, and all these amazing chemicals that just really activate the parasympathetic nervous system and lower inflammation in your body. So vitamin G is not something that you buy at Whole Foods or on Amazon. Vitamin G is the practice of gratitude. It is being in a state of gratitude, not just using gratitude as a checklist. I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that, and then you're done. No, but living in the gratitude, feeling it, experiencing it. And that's what I would recommend. I'm so passionate about teaching this because it's made a big difference in my life. And the more you feed your brain the things you're grateful for, guess what happens? The more you're given to be grateful for. That is a universal law that nobody could argue. Just like gravity. You might not believe in gravity, but you jump off a building, you see that gravity exists, even if you don't believe in it. Same thing with this universal law. What you feed energy to expands. So when you shift your attention and your energy away from all the things you dislike about the world and all the things you dislike about your body or yourself or your relationships, and you focus now on all the things you're grateful for, there's a part of your brain called the reticular activating system, and it filters out all the things that you're not paying attention to anymore, which all the negative stinking thinking things, And then it gives you all the things to focus on that you're grateful for. So you start to feel grateful for so many things. Like I was on my rooftop today doing a workout. Well, I worked out in my gym in my building. Then I went to the rooftop, and this is going to sound weird, but I'm there like walking on my rooftop, getting some sunshine here in Miami. And I'm thinking, man, like this is, I'm in a body, but I'm really, this is like my meat suit, meaning like I'm energy, I'm a spirit, but this is so cool that I have a body. I can like see my fingers. I feel like I'm controlling this thing, and I want to treat it the best way possible. So I was just so grateful that, God gave me this body and I could treat it right and live on planet Earth for hopefully 120 years and let my spirit and energy like experience all the amazing things on planet Earth. So I believe it starts with gratitude. And if you think it's woo woo, I could get into the science, but I don't think we need to do that. I just say, give me 30 days of practicing gratitude. Like as simple as this: spend 3 minutes every morning writing down just 3 different things you're grateful for, and spend 1 minute on each thing. So write it down and then sit there for a minute on that one thing you wrote. Why are you grateful for it? Like, where is that showing up in your life? How often, et cetera? And then go to the next one. Do that for 30 days and watch what it'll do to your keto carnivore fasting results. That would be my bit of advice. Vitamin G every single day.
I love that. You had me for a minute. I'm like, oh my gosh, why haven't I heard of this supplement? Like, I'm going to need to go get this. It sounds life changing, but I agree. And, I'm kind of, and I don't think that is woo, but I am into the woo, but
I was
definitely.
gonna say Courtney loves the woo woo
Oh,
Me
anyway.
too.
yeah,
I'm all about it.
I'm deep. I mean, like inner child work, shadow work,
Yeah.
meditations, visualizations, and definitely like gratitude. It really does make a difference. It actually makes me think of, I listen to a lot of Gary Vee, and he's big on that too. He's like, every morning I wake up and I think about the fact that my whole family just died. He's like, and I sit in that feeling and it's horrible. And then it's like, boom, they're not. And he's like, and then you just feel so much gratitude that didn't actually happen. And it really is life changing. So I'm really glad you
Yeah.
mentioned that.
Yeah, I've heard Gary talk about that before. And that's a great tip, because some people have trouble practicing gratitude. I've seen it, I've had people do it and they're like, I just have trouble. I treat it like a checklist. So what you just said, what Gary does is a good idea. Like, what in your life, if you removed, you would be so devastated about? Like, pretend like that's real, and then bring it back into your life, and then you're going to experience gratitude just like Gary does with his family. So yeah, great point there.
Yeah.
And
Wow. Chills.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think it's the writing. You're spot on with it's not even just like thinking about it, but writing it down. Courtney has been on this journey. I've been like kind of confiding in her with me, with like my mental health. And one thing I started doing is every morning I wake up at 5 a.m. and before I look at my phone, before I get a cup of coffee, I sit there and I journal. And I've been doing it for a couple weeks now, and even just like getting the thoughts down on like a piece of paper and seeing, I have prompts and questions. It really, and I'm not a writer. Like I don't like to journal. I don't like to write like things like that. It really, I'm in a better health, like a mental health space, even just in the span of a couple of weeks. So if you implement that into your life, like I just think like, wow, where can I be in 10 months from now after doing this for like a week or two? And I completely agree. Not just sitting there and thinking the gratitude, but writing it down and visualizing it, because it makes it so much more concrete.
It does. 100%. I agree with, there's a power with, writing out those words, even with like taking notes as well, like writing it out versus either thinking about it. Like you said, yeah, there's going to be benefits to that for sure, but there's more benefits when you write it out. Same thing. We have our phone and you could like type it in your notepad, but it's very different than actually physically writing it out, Devin, like you said. So I agree with you 100%.
It's like you can compartmentalize. Is that the right word?
Yep.
In the proper way. It's not, I butchered that, but it allows you to process it very differently than when you're just like cycling it over and over in your head.
That's right.
So
100%.
definitely like the best advice I think anyone's given us. Don't just think it, write it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I'm laughing now because I'm looking at my pile of books. When you were saying, "Oh, Joe Dispenza did this study," I'm like, "Wait, but he's woo. I have his stuff. I haven't cracked it open yet, but sitting right here, it's like the Quantum Supernatural or something. I don't even know the book title because I haven't read it, but it's about like quantum
Yeah.
traveling or like it's so wild, but I love all that stuff. So, okay, I'm happy to hear all that. Before we do our 3 fun questions, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, what you're up to. I know you're going to be at KetoCon, maybe like what you're going to be talking about at KetoCon and just all the things about you.
Yeah, thank you, Courtney. I will be at KetoCon. I know you'll be there as well.
Devin will
KetoCon.
too.
Oh, awesome, Devin. Cool. Can't wait to hang out with both of you. KetoCon's going to be fantastic. I encourage everybody listening to get your ticket. It's really like the Super Bowl of keto events. There's going to be several thousand people there. I was asked, and I'm so honored to do a keynote lecture there. So I'm going to be speaking about 3 ancient healing strategies that will reboot your metabolism and lower inflammation. And I don't know, this was like a recent thing that happened, so you might not know this, and I don't think your audience might not know this, but one of my close friends and my colleagues, Dr. Mindy Pels. Are you familiar with Dr. Mindy Pels? Yeah. She, reached out to me and she's like, oh, I'm not speaking at KetoCon, meaning she wasn't speaking at KetoCon this year. And I see you're speaking. And Robin told her, all the spots were filled. And it's hard for Robin. Of course, everybody wants Mindy there, but it's hard for Robin to be like, you can't speak anymore. Here's Mindy's spot. So I told Mindy, that's okay. I'm speaking Saturday morning, and why don't you just join me on stage and we could co-present? And here's my lecture. And of course, she was down for it. So me and Mindy are going to co-present on the 3 ancient healing strategies to reboot the metabolism and reduce inflammation. So I'll teach, and then she'll kind of give the female perspective side of things, and we'll go back and forth. We have a great time together. So yeah, I'll be speaking there Saturday morning, me and Mindy. It's going to be fantastic. And then I'm doing a meet and greet right after, and I'm gonna purchase and send 200 of my books, and the first 200 people that show up to the meet and greet, give you a copy of my paperback book Keto Flex and sign it for you. And I have this thing that I developed called a seed oil allergy card. I don't think this is new, so I don't think you made me see me post this, but on here, because when I go to restaurants, I always tell the server, I'm allergic to vegetable oils. I'm allergic to canola, to soybean, etc. Do you have something else? And I found that I tell my students to do the same thing, but they have a challenge making that request because it's like embarrassing or whatever. So I made this card, and on the card it says, "Dear chef, I must avoid, I have food allergies to vegetable oils. In order for me to avoid an allergic reaction, I must avoid everything marked below." And it has the 8 inflammatory oils. And then underneath it, it has green check marks of the healthier options. And then you just show this to your server, and you don't have to consume seed oils at restaurants. So I'm going to bring about 2,000 of these printed, and at the meet and greet, I'm going to give them out. But if you're not going to KetoCon, you could get this for free over at seedoilcard.com. You'll be sent a PDF download of this, and you can just put it on your phone and show your server that. So seedoilcard.com. And then lastly, my website is benazadi.com, where it has all my socials and all that good stuff.
Awesome. So I actually know that you did that because my mom went to your website and did it. So, and then I forgot about it. So I need to get it too, because it is kind of awkward to be like, okay, can you cook things in butter? And it's like, who knows if they're actually going to do it? They might just be like, yeah. So that's really awesome.
You show them the card, and they really pay attention to you. I actually did it at Low Carb Denver because unfortunately, look, the event was amazing. This has nothing to do with the event. It was the hotel. At the dinner, everything was cooked in canola oil, and I was the only person who asked. So I showed them the card, and they're like, 3 people coming out. They took the plate away from me. They like made it without the oils, and they really pay attention to it. Tell your mom, by the way, thank you so much. I love that she got the card. She's awesome.
Yeah, she's on it. Okay, Devin, do you want to ask the fun questions?
Okay, it's been a hot second. Okay, number 1, what is your favorite curse word?
I don't curse that often, but probably like WTF. I like that phrase, like WTF. Like, I'm not going to say it, but yeah, that's probably my favorite curse word.
Okay, that's different. We've never had that one before. Number 2, since you came from a standard American diet, what was your favorite junk food or your favorite food to eat before going keto carnivore?
Chicken Parmesan in a gluten-filled wrap.
Yes. That sounds amazing. And then number 3, what are you currently reading or watching or both?
I'm listening. I'm reading a physical book. I'm reading the Diabetes Circadian Code by Dr. Sachin Panda, where he makes the case that he believes eating out of your natural circadian rhythm is raising glucose and insulin, leading to diabetes. So I'm reading his book. It's really, really good. And then I'm listening to a Bob Proctor audio on Audible called The Ultimate Bob Proctor Library or something like that, where it has a collection of like all of his best audios from his seminars, etc. So I listened to that. And then I am watching with my fiance, we're watching The Last of Us,
Oh,
which
is
is
that good?
yeah, that's really good. It's kind of dark sometimes, but it's really good. I wouldn't recommend watching it before bed though. I tend to watch it earlier because I don't like feeding my subconscious mind with all that dark stuff and going to bed. So watch it earlier in the day. And then we just like binge watched Impractical Jokers. We love that show as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Sounds
Awesome. Those are some good ones. Usually people are like, I'm not watching anything. And I'm like, give me some good.
very cool. Okay, well, that is it for today. Thank you so, so much. This has been awesome. Really good nuggets, I feel like, for people to take away on this. So thank you so much for your time. We appreciate chatting with you.
Thank you both for having me. It was an honor. You guys are doing great work and just keep up the awesome job educating the world. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you. All right. We'll see you next time, everybody.